Today it is March 6th, 2026. My name is Blair Williams. I'm here at the Cumberland County Historical Society with Dean Vaughn. So first off, Dean, thanks for coming in. The first question I always like to ask is, do you know how your family came to live in Cumberland County?
Well, my grandparents were in the area, and then my my parents moved to the Carlisle area a long time ago.
So have your parents as being Donald and Violet, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Yes.
And what did they do for work?
Well, my father worked in Mount Holly Springs at the paper mill. And of course, my mother, we had 6 children, so a family of 6 kids. So my mother was pretty busy taking care of the family.
Now, I know you graduated from Boiling Springs. Did you live in Boiling Springs or more the South Middleton area?
We grew up in Boiling Springs, yes.
And I believe I have your graduation date as 1957.
That is correct.
I'm assuming you were born around 36, 37?
39.
39. Math is terrible. So do you remember what Boiling Springs was like sort of in the early 1940s during World War II, or is that?
I sure do. And the reason I have a clear memory of that is during World War II, my father was drafted into the Army at 35 years old, a wife and 5 kids. And he was immediately sent overseas in the war, to the war. So I have a clear memory of that particular time, even though I was less than 5 years old. There were 4 of us who were under 5 years old when he was drafted.
And were your grandparents around to help your mother, or was it pretty much her on her own?
No, my grandparents were actually in Shippensburg.
Okay. So your mother by herself in Boiling Springs with 5 kids.
Right.
4 and 4 not going to school yet. So
Right.
oof.
Yeah, we grew up. All of us walked to school, to church and to school for 12 years. We were only a couple hundred yards from the school and the church.
What school and church?
United Brethren, EUB.
Okay, and then the school?
Boiling Springs School.
Elementary or?
Elementary, and then secondary, high school.
Right, so that would have been before Rice was built, sort of on the Holly Pike there then.
Right, yeah.
Okay. And do you have any memories that stand out from those early school years?
Well, when you say early school years,
So yeah, elementary, middle school, so pre-high school.
Well, actually, we went to the same building all the way through,
Oh, okay.
right in Boiling Springs.
Mhm.
And we lived on Walnut Street, near the school. And of course, I certainly remember my senior high school years.
Yeah.
I played basketball.
Yep.
And at the risk of appearing boastful, I led the league in scoring.
Now, I know one of the things when I was preparing for this interview is you have or you had a twin brother, Dale.
Yes.
So what was it like? Were you often in the same class, or did they split you up?
Well, yeah, we were often in the same class, but not always.
Okay. And I know he played basketball as well.
Yes.
So did that I guess being twins, did that help on the basketball court? You know, sort
Oh,
of,
it sure did.
yeah.
We used to step up to the circle before the tip-off, shake hands, and then we would switch places. So the opponent was lined up with the wrong guy before the game even started. So that was an advantage.
Did you wear similar numbers too, or
I was number 3, he was number 9.
okay? Yeah, you know, like 6 and 9, or yeah, 11 and 1 or something. Or
Right. Now, I do have to say that, of course, we came from a poor family, and right around 11 or 12 years old, my twin brother and I started to mow lawns in Boiling Springs.
Mhm.
And we actually set up a goal. And our goal was to mow every lawn in Boiling Springs. And of course, a couple weeks into the project, we realized that that goal was not going to work, because after a week or two, every lawn we mowed is going to need to be mowed again. So, but we ended up mowing many, many, many lawns in Boiling Springs.
Do you remember what you charged?
Well, I don't recall what we charged at the time, but it couldn't have been very much
Yeah.
at the time.
And was that basically just for spending money for the two of you?
I'm sorry?
Were you attempting to just make spending money for the two of you, or?
We were actually trying to earn money to help the family, because
Okay.
with my mother actually, even though she didn't have a job because of all of us kids,
Mhm.
but she washed curtains for, remember the racks
Yep.
that they used to have, and she washed a lot of curtains and put them up on the rack and to help earn money. And then, of course, by mowing lawns, we could help.
Yeah. Where were you and Dale sort of in the order of children? Because you said there were 6 of you.
Well, we had a brother, Don, who was 10 years older than us.
Oh, okay.
And then came Dale and myself.
Yep.
The following year after we were born, then we had a sister who was born. And then 2 years after that, another sister. So there was we twins, and then two girls, or sisters. All of us were under 5 years old, like when my dad was drafted.
Okay. And then when he came back, you had another sister?
Yes, later.
Um, so one of the stories that I was reading mentioned that you were accepted into Dickinson College, but you weren't able. You mentioned you came from a poorer family, so you weren't able to go because of the cost. Is that right?
You know, right after I came out of high school, I joined the Army
Okay.
and was sent to Germany for 2 years. It was interesting. Almost everyone who was drafted at that time were being drafted out of college, even if they were married. And I decided to volunteer for the draft.
Okay.
And fortunately, I could tell immediately because of how important attitude was. You can imagine being drafted. All those guys, there were 800 guys went in at the same time when I did.
Yeah.
And of course, I volunteered. They didn't. So you can imagine what their attitude would have been. But that attitude helped me immediately. And in that 2-year period, I was promoted to through sergeant before I was released from the Army.
All right. And I know Dale also, did he also volunteer or was he drafted?
He volunteered, but he volunteered for the Air Force.
Okay.
And I have to say that one of the reasons was we were always thought of as the Vaughn twins. So we decided we wanted to be considered as individuals.
Sure.
So he went into the Air Force, I went into the Army.
I know he spent a little bit longer in the Air Force.
Yeah, he went in for 4 years. That was required if you went into the Air Force.
Okay. And then did you both end up in Greenland or was that just?
Actually, as soon as I came out, it was shortly after I came out of the Army, I signed up with RCA at the Ballistic Missile Early Warning System in Thule, Greenland. And eventually, Dale signed up too and came to Greenland.
When his term of service was over.
Yeah.
Now, so you mentioned that you were sort of promoted through the non-commissioned officer ranks, and what were you doing in Germany then? Was it mainly just deterrence or?
In Germany, I was in a tank battalion.
Okay.
And my first promotion was to become a tank commander. And then after a while, I became the battalion ammunition sergeant. So, of course, I was only in for 2 years.
Yeah. Where were you stationed in Germany?
Erlangen, right outside of Nuremberg.
Okay. And then what made you sign up for RCA then? Was it
To earn enough money to go to college.
okay?
And when I got to Greenland, of course, the sun goes down in October and doesn't come up till February.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I got there, I started studying psychology on my own to get a head start for college. And it was through the self-study of psychology that I became really excited about memory.
Yep.
And I started developing fortunately for me, I was creative. Again, I don't mean to be boastful, but I'm lucky that I'm creative. And I started creating my own memory system while I was in Greenland. And all of a sudden I could see that there would be a tremendous advantage if I could hit a big company when I got back here. And use that to advance through the ranks.
Mhm.
So when I got back, I went to an employment agency and they got me, I said, just get me a job in a really big company. And they got me a job in Blue Shield.
Yep.
And using my memory techniques, I was able to advance through in 6.5 years. I was, I had 7 promotions and became, luckily for me, the youngest vice president of the largest Blue Shield plant in the United States.
Wow.
So that was exciting.
Yeah.
So I waited only a couple months and I resigned my new position as vice president and started teaching
Mhm.
people how to remember.
Well, so going back a little bit though, what was the work like in Greenland with RCA? Like, was it? I mean, you mentioned that the sun goes down, you know, over the course of the entire winter, but you know, what were you doing there? I guess in the meantime.
Well, because of my work in the Army, that helped me in my job in Greenland. Uh, the one nice part about it was that um, in Greenland, they had at Thule, they have 4 radar screens,
Mhm.
and each radar screen is larger than a football field turned up
Yeah.
inside. So they were lined up. And I was actually there the night that all of a sudden, all the computers, I was actually in the computer room when it happened, that all the computer screens lit up and it appeared like an all-out attack coming across the top of the earth
Mm.
from Russia. And all of our planes and defenses went up all over the world when that happened. And it looked like an all-out attack. It was programmed, the computers were programmed to actually predict, they could determine on the missiles that would be coming, they could determine within a city block where they would strike in the United States.
Mm.
And one of the officers in the computer room that night said, if this happens tomorrow at the same time, I know exactly what this is. And sure enough, the following night, it all lit up. And what they discovered was those radar screens were so powerful that the radar was bouncing off of the moon.
Mm.
It was incredible. So they immediately programmed it to ignore the moon. So, but that was an exciting experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned that your brother Dale eventually joined you in Greenland. When did you first start? Was it in Greenland, or was it later that you first started talking about potentially going into business with him, with for the memory?
Well, actually, I didn't start until when I got back. I mean, I worked with my fellow employees up there to keep testing
Okay.
my programs, and then I could see that I had something that if I could get back and get into a big company, could move through the ranks, and that's what I was able to do.
And then, is that one of the reasons why you chose? Because you mentioned you went to Greenland to save up for college, but it sounds like you sort of shifted or sort of pivoted and decided to go a different route then.
I decided that while I was in Greenland, I knew I would not go to college because I had discovered something that would be beneficial to so many people. And but I didn't start teaching publicly until I resigned from Blue Shield.
Okay. And so you mentioned you ended up at Blue Shield, I believe in the claims processing department.
I was in charge of claims processing.
Was that intentional on your part, or was that just sort of happenstance that you ended up there?
No, I actually started at an entry-level position. And one thing I could see is that things seem to be happening in two different departments. They were working on the same thing, so I recommended that they combine those two departments. So they combined them and put me in charge. And I was able to do that type of thing while I was still there. The most exciting thing that happened is my first day at the board of directors meeting. The vice president of finance every month would send out a document, and there was a slip that each person had to sign that they read it as it went around. And what it was is where we actually stood in each type of insurance that we were operating with.
Okay.
And at the board meeting, my first board meeting, of course, couldn't sit at the main table. I had to sit along the wall. But this was so exciting because what happened was the vice president of finance gave a report, and he had reported where we stood in what was in one area. And when he gave the number, it was wrong because I remembered one thing I used my memory system for. I would remember in each department how many claims were processed and that type of thing. So when he gave the report, I thought, that's wrong. Should I or shouldn't I? This is my first meeting. And so I said, excuse me, and I gave his name. He projected, the number he gave was around $2 million in that particular function. But that was not right. So I went ahead and raised my hand. And I said, excuse me, and I gave his name. I believe that the amount as of November was $6 million. 245,000. And then all the members of the board, stuff like that. I said $965. And when I knew everyone was looking, I said, and 72 cents. And I got a standing ovation from the board of directors because I remembered that. But that again showed that if you're using your memory techniques with a good memory system, that's the type of thing you could do.
Yeah.
So that again, not appearing boastful, but that was really exciting to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Well, the vice president of finance, his office was adjacent to the boardroom. He excused himself, and then he came back. He came back in, and here's all he said: Dean Vaughn, right to the penny. And that's when I got the standing ovation. So that was fun.
So you mentioned that you were using your memory technique and system sort of to move up the ranks at Blue Cross Blue Shield there. Is that basically because you were using it yourself to, memorize those numbers, or were you also teaching others?
I wasn't teaching anybody at Blue Shield.
Okay.
I was just using it to advance myself.
All right. So, but
Because I was only 31 when I became
yeah.
vice president.
Okay. So you were teaching it in Greenland then, or sort of working on the process with
In Greenland, I was working with
others.
my
Okay.
fellow workers to test out my techniques.
Yeah. Okay. So then, I have here you founded Memory Laboratory International in '68, then, which is a little bit before you left Blue Cross Blue Shield. Is that right? Or
Not sure of I'm not sure of that.
okay.
I'm not sure of the year.
Yeah. Then so you mentioned that you become the VP role. You leave 6 months later to sort of work on this full time. When did you start talking with Dale to sort of, for the two of you to work together?
Say that again.
So you leave Blue Cross to sort of found your own company, and I know you were working with your brother. Is that right?
For a while, but he.
Yeah. Well, at the beginning.
Beg pardon?
At the beginning of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was he also, I mean, how did you decide to sort of work together, I guess?
Well,
At the start.
actually, he was in real estate.
Yep.
So he wasn't with me full time.
Okay.
And he never came with me full time.
Well, what was that, I guess, what was that, I guess, thought process like to say, all right, I've just, I'm 31 years old. I've just become the youngest VP company history. I'm gonna leave to start my own thing.
Well, when I started, I didn't have an office, so I actually ran my courses in different hotels, basically. And the exciting part about it was I set up a system where if you brought someone in, if you came in and took my course,
Yep.
and then referred someone else, then I paid you. So that started multiplying out very rapidly.
Yep.
So
And what were the first things that you focused on? Did you focus on medicine early, or was that something that you sort of grew into?
I didn't focus on, I started in the early 70s teaching general memory techniques, but it was not until about mid 70s that I decided, from my experience at Blue Shield, that the need to know the language of medicine was incredible. So I decided to develop a program to teach the Latin and Greek you need to know the language of medicine. And from my experience in being in charge of claims processing, I developed a program that taught 300 Latin and Greek roots, prefixes, and suffixes that could be combined into more than 11,000 complex medical terms. And that started, that really took off because I went to different Blue Cross Blue Shield plans and offered them the program. First, when it was first developed, it was 1,288 colored slides in the carousel slide trays running on cassettes that would automatically turn the carousel. And I sold that to companies for $5,000 with the guarantee that no class would ever drop below an A average, or I would buy it back full price. And I never, ever had to buy it back. And it's pretty neat that you could have entry-level people coming in, learning the language very rapidly and scoring in the high 90th percentile on a completion type test.
Yeah.
So today we've now trained over 4 million people with that program.
No longer with carousel slides, though.
No longer what?
With carousel slides.
No, no, I changed as the possibilities changed. It's now online.
Yeah. Well, one of the other things that I found, the other thing that I saw that you developed was for younger students was the multiplication tables. What made you see that as a need that you could fill?
The reason that I developed the multiplication program was the fact that there are over 4 million third graders in this country. And even though our schools spend the entire year working on multiplication at third grade, of those 4 million, more than 1 million go to fourth grade not knowing their multiplication facts. And we kept dropping down and down as a nation. So my program on multiplication can teach you multiplication facts in the equivalent of 1 day of school using my memory techniques.
Yeah. And the article I was reading, you had superintendents and teachers saying, we didn't see the expected loss that we normally see over the summer. These kids were coming back and scoring 100 or 96%, 97% on the test, when normally you'd see a much further drop off.
Well, that's a good point, because when you learn by repetition,
Mhm.
the very day, the very hour, the very instant you stop repeating, you start forgetting. And I was so excited because after this summer vacation, when they came back with my program, having learned with my program, they would score in the high, still score in the high 90th percentile.
Yeah.
So,
I guess we haven't talked about it. I don't know how much you want to go into detail, but if I'm from what I remember, just the articles I was reading, a lot of what it is association. It's not, as you said, repetition. It's associated.
it's not repetition,
Yeah.
it is association. Because you remember incredibly more of what you see
Mhm.
than what you hear or read. And that it's all done with pictures.
Yep.
And I developed a a program using the multiplication as an example. That there's a PhD up at MIT who has said that it's called the Vaughn cube. I use any square or rectangular room. And he says that's the most revolutionary breakthrough in human memory development in hundreds of years.
And you just sort of stumbled across this concept in Greenland.
No,
No.
I didn't develop the Vaughn cube until I was
Much
a number of years into full-time memory.
Okay. So, what was it in Greenland that I guess first made you start realizing that association was such a strong way to memorize things?
Well, again, I'm very fortunate that I'm creative. So
Mhm.
it, I tried all different types of things in Greenland because up there you have plenty of time.
Yeah.
And it was after I got back here that I came up with the room system. And it's been used for, I'm sure you remember in school you saw in the chart the periodic table of the elements.
Yep.
Well, the most that anyone normally does is that they remember the names of all the elements. But there's actually 7 facts on each element. I mean, you have the symbol, the atomic weight, the atomic number, the valence, and you have all that. And yet, in a number of colleges now can teach that entire periodic table of the elements in a little over 4 hours. That they know the entire thing. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah. Um, so you mentioned that you started off basically just doing general memory workshops in various hotel rooms and whatnot. Um, how did you grow? And then you said later on in the 70s you developed the carousel slides with the medical terms for Blue Cross Blue Shield. And uh, what was the process of growing the business? I mean, were you always sort of in the central PA area, Harrisburg, and or yeah,
Well, when the word got out, many of the insurance companies started calling me.
okay,
So if you can learn, think about it.
Mhm.
If you can learn 11,000, if you could know 11,000 medical terms in 14 hours, taking no notes and doing no homework, you can get the attention of insurance companies. And it's now operational in 13,000 schools, colleges, graduate schools, insurance companies, the government, in all 50 states and over 40 countries.
Okay. And I guess you originally were you based out of, was it Camp Hill that it was based out of?
Yes, in Camp Hill.
One of the reasons I asked that is because I also know that you were associated with a number of fraternal organizations sort of around that area. What made you decide to sort of join or get involved with, those organizations?
You mean the Masonic organization?
Yeah.
Well, growing up in Boiling Springs, I don't know, have you ever been to Allenbury?
Yep.
Okay, well, I worked at Allenbury washing dishes,
Okay.
and John Hines was the owner,
Yep.
president. It was John Hines who came to me, and he recommended me, which you have to be recommended to become a Mason. You have to be recommended
Mm-hmm.
by another Mason who's already,
Yep.
and that's how that was my first step. He recommended me. And then in Carlisle, I went through the chairs, there are 8 chairs. Takes 8 years to get to the top to become a master of the lodge. And I did, in 1973, I became master of the lodge in Carlisle.
Is that the Star Lodge, Cumberland Star Lodge?
Cumberland Star Lodge. And then in 1984, I became potentate of the Zembo Shrine. There were 10,000 members. When I was potentate, we had 10,000 members.
Wow. Okay. And then I know, so what was that process like of? I mean, was that just, again, also, using the memory techniques you developed? Was that a part of it of growing, or were you just, people saw that you were committed and?
Well, there's a lot of memory work in becoming a Mason, and then a lot of memory work to become an officer. And
So you had, with your, I guess, skills, were uniquely, qualified to sort of rise up those ranks then.
I'm not sure I understand it.
So because you were so trying to think of that. Because as you said, it takes a lot of memory work to sort of, become a Mason and rise up the ranks. And that's what you did for a living. And that's what you were focused on. I mean, that I'm sure was beneficial to that process.
Oh my gosh. It just made it so easy for me.
Yeah.
So I'd like to go back to the multiplication just briefly.
yeah.
I called the president of the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, Dr. E. Glenadine Gibb. She was from the University of Texas at Austin.
Mhm.
And I told her what was possible. And she said, she didn't believe me. I said, well, I'll tell you what. I will set up an example for you, and I'll fly you into Pennsylvania, into to a school district, and let you experience it. So this happened in Mifflinburg area elementary school. She flew in. The parents were told, don't work with multiplication this year. We are going to use a different method. Now, again, you know, as I'm sure you must be aware, how long it takes some students, and some don't get it at all because of repetition. Kids got off the bus. They came in, there were 27 students. They were given a test, and they didn't even know what that meant, multiplication. And in 92 minutes from dead start, they were tested again on the 100 basic multiplication facts. And 27 students out of 27 scored 100%. And Dr. Gibb sat in the back of the room and cried to see that happen. So that was very rewarding to see that happen.
I don't know if it was that specific event or something else, but I feel like it was around that time period then where I think the Patriot or the Sentinel was doing an article on the multiplication tables, and the other thing they mentioned was there were older students who, you know, going into ninth grade who couldn't do multiplication were taught this particular method and sort of for the first time had success doing math. And it was the first thing that ever really clicked for them as well. And
Right.
yeah, and so I mean, that's been on the opposite spectrum where, you know, they've been trying and trying for 6 years at this point,
Yeah,
and it finally clicked for them.
well, you're right. And the reason they were having difficulties, they were doing it by repetition,
Yeah.
which just doesn't work.
Yeah. Or it doesn't work for a lot of people anyway.
It doesn't work for most people.
Yeah. So the rest of the stuff that I have is sort of getting a little bit away from that. Is there any other things that you want to talk about in terms of, I guess, how, I mean, you're still working on memory.
Oh, yeah, I have a real exciting one coming because I've been working on it for a couple of years. It's called Memory Sports. It's a new sport. It's the equivalent of track and field events for the human mind. And it's memory games, and each game, just like if, let's say we were in track and field, you might run the 100-yard dash and the 220. I might run the 440 or the mile. Well, the same thing is true with the memory sports. There are different types of memory events. One is just sequential information. Another is a grid, like a 2x2 up to a 10x10.
Mhm.
That would be 100 different memory cells. And the computer shows you the grid and then randomly populates the grid with information. Let's say you did a 5x5 grid, that's 25
Yep.
cells, 25 different things in place until it's full. Then what you have to do is, even though you took it randomly, you have to call it back sequentially, like row A,
Yep.
row B, C, D. So that's something that's going to be released in a couple of weeks
Oh, wow.
after a couple of years of development. So that's what's really exciting. And I'm also, my publisher now, I don't sell my medical terminology anymore. I haven't for years. It's, my publisher is now in Colorado, and they have salespeople who sell the program, and we've trained it
Is it what, 4 million?
4 million so far.
Yeah, and counting.
Right.
Well, because I mean, the other questions that I have sort of relate to, I guess, being a twin, and then something that I just randomly found and was interested in. And and that's the shorter thing. So in '97, you, and I don't know if this is because your brother worked in real estate, but you bought a barn and converted it into a home. Do you, what was that process like?
Well, very unusual. Um, the that barn, the walls are about this thick,
Yeah.
all Pennsylvania mountain stone, all the way to the top. And I first put an office in there, and then I thought, hey, why not change this into a home? The home that we lived in was next door. I mean, it was right beside it. It was the original Good Hope Farm. And that ended up being 13,000 square feet finished. An indoor pool, large indoor pool, bigger than that area.
Yep.
And an outdoor pool and a tennis court. My wife said that she needed a riding vacuum cleaner. So
Yeah,
big.
yeah, 13,000 square feet.
Yeah. So that was fun, and there were no nails in that barn when I started, none. There were wooden dowels, and you could see the Roman numerals where they put. They had. Can you imagine what the trees had to look like for the wood? Because the barn was 104 feet long. 104 feet long, and only there were two huge beams, wooden beams, about this big, 50, more than 50 feet long. And then there was another two in the center. But there was when you look at it, it still looked like a barn.
Yeah.
It always will.
Well, the other thing I was reading is there was a silo that I guess you also converted into something.
The silo,
Yeah.
right before I moved, I had the idea to put my office on the top of the silo.
Oh, okay.
And because it was a beautiful silo right beside the barn. And I had a waterfalls that went around it. It was pretty neat. But I didn't start it. Thank goodness, because I would have not wanted to move. But 2 5-ton heat pumps,
Yeah.
plus on the lower level where the pool was, I didn't want to use the 5-ton heat pumps. I used baseboard heating because of the chlorine in the pool. Didn't want to circulate that.
When you told people you were doing this, what was their reaction?
I'm sorry?
When you told people you were converting this barn into your home, what was their reaction?
I thought it was crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, a friend of mine, Fred Esses, who has passed away, who is Esses and Sons Carpet, he thought I was crazy to even start. Of course, there's a lot of carpet went into that place, so he was happy about that.
Yeah. How long did it take for the project from start to finish? I guess.
Well, I decided that I would manage it myself, so I stopped work for 6 months, and it was accomplished in 6 months,
Wow.
from dead start to completely finished.
And how long did you end up living there?
Um, well, I guess maybe only about 4 years. My wife wanted to move to Hershey because she played a lot of tennis.
Okay.
So I didn't want to do that, but we did it.
Well, you're still in Dauphin County, so
Right.
all these years later.
Right.
So the other thing that Pat Strickler mentioned was that, and I had to dig, to be honest, to find this. But I guess with you and Dale, you were heavily involved with the International Twins Association, and then in particular, I guess separate from that but related to it, is you wrote 2 songs that won an award. I guess the Mother of Twins and the Twin Song.
Yeah. I wrote 2 songs. I've written 34 songs.
Okay. Those were the 2 I found anyway.
Okay. Then in 1992, well, during the Gulf War, I wrote a patriotic song called The Rainbow. And that went to number 7 in the nation. And I received from Norman Schwarzkopf a letter and a framed picture of him and
Yeah.
thanking me for writing the song. And he told me that the song was played every day in the Persian Gulf. And in every state, when the troops came home, they played that song. Then in 1992, I wrote 5 songs and submitted them to the Southern Songwriters Guild. We have thousands of songwriters competing from all over the world. And one day I got a call, and the girl said, "Mr. Vaughn, are you sitting down?" I could tell she was from the South.
Yeah.
And, I said, "Well, I'm sitting at my desk." She said, "Well, of the 5 songs you submitted, 4 of them won something." She said, "The most difficult category was country, and you won Country Song of the Year." I said, "Oh my gosh." She said, "But it gets better." I said, "Well, if that's the most difficult one, how could it get better?" She said, "Well, because you won overall Song of the Year also." So flew down to New Orleans and had an award. I get to, which was nice. And 4 of the 5 songs won. But I had 34 songs that had been professionally recorded. So
Now, early on, I saw some advertisements that you were a vocalist in an act. And I was a little bit confused about the name of the act, but it was Jack Bailey and his combo. Do you remember that? This was like this might have been like 50s, early 60s or something.
what was the name?
Jack Bailey and his combo. And then beneath that it said, with Dean Vaughn as vocalist. Maybe it was a different Dean Vaughn.
That must have been, because I don't recognize that one.
Well, were you a singer or were you just writing songs then?
Well, I've never professed to be a singer, so I can write the words and the music.
Yeah.
So basically, we have some just coming up now. One of the leading gospel groups in the country. Don't know if you ever heard of them, the Hoppers. But I expect that they'll be recording some of my songs, and I have those 5 songs that won awards.
Mhm.
4 of them won awards. The interesting thing, I got so involved in memory that I didn't promote those songs. I didn't publish them.
Mhm.
They're all copyrighted.
Yeah.
But now I'm going to publish those, have them published.
Well, there seems to be some overlap. I mean, you mentioned that the memory sort of developed because of your creativity. And I have to imagine that the songwriting, comes from that same font of creativity. But how did you get involved with was that something that you were always interested in?
What, music?
Yeah.
Well, you really enjoyed music,
Okay.
but it was probably in the 80s when I first started to write songs. I think the first songs that I wrote that were recorded were those for the twins, because
Yep.
Dale and I, my twin brother and I, were co-presidents of the World Twin Organization 2 times, once in Atlanta and once in Washington, D.C. And that happened after we were co-vice presidents in Denver, Colorado.
But yeah, I mean, those two songs it seemed were also written for local individuals, or local individuals from Boiling Springs area recorded those as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that's why I was able to find those.
I don't know how you found that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I found the lyrics. I just found the newspaper articles reporting that I think it was like Philip Roth and Paul Roth were recorded the twin song, and
Yeah.
then yeah, the mother of the twins was like another local individual. But yeah, I think
She was the mother of twins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, but I think the article quoted you as saying that
Doris Rodaball.
that there's no songs for either of those identity groups basically. So you were filling that void.
Right.
But how did you and Dale get involved with the World Twin Organization?
Well, first you have to be a twin.
Yeah.
Because every year they have the twins from all over the world meet on Labor Day weekend.
Okay.
And once they had it in the Harrisburg area, and it was through that I connected with the organization. And then one thing led to another, and pretty soon we find ourselves as an officer in the organization. And then twice became co-president.
So what was the work involved with that organization then?
It was mostly based on what the competition would be: the most identical male, most identical female, and the most unalike. So we set up some new categories and things like that.
Now, as the president or co-president, were you basically involved with organizing that year's?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
you'd have to find a huge hotel, and then there's competitions, and so there was a lot of work involved in getting it set up. So it's something different. That was interesting.
Well, how well did you and Dale work together, I guess, on with this project and other things, I guess?
Almost every time, one of us would pretty much take charge.
Okay.
I mean, there were times when we had to work together, but
Yeah. One of you would generally step up and say,
yeah,
all right.
right.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. And then you mentioned he was mainly focused in real estate, but still within this. I mean, did your whole family pretty much stay in the central PA area then? Or,
Yeah, mostly.
because I saw your oldest brother Donald he owned a restaurant, mechanics work, and then it seemed like Dale was like the Harrisburg area.
Yeah.
I didn't find too much with your sisters there, so I wasn't sure if they also stayed local or.
I'm not sure I understood that way.
I didn't see anything for your sisters, Marie, Dorcas, and Connie. So I didn't know if they also stayed local or if they.
Dorcas is in Mount Holly.
Okay.
Marie passed away, and Connie is now in Delaware.
So not too far away
No.
then. Well, that is all the questions that I have here, or everything that that I have to go over. So the last thing I always ask, is there anything that I should have asked or that you would like to mention before we end?
Well, I don't know if there's for the Historical Society, I don't know if there's anything that I have that I could present to the Historical Society, like the frame picture from Schwarzkopf, General Schwarzkopf. I would be. I mean, I might as well turn them over because.
Yeah, I mean, our focus is really Cumberland County stuff. So if it's connected to Cumberland County in some way, clearly you're a Cumberland County resident, you lived here for a long time, that would qualify. So, yeah, we have a copy of one of your books anyway. So yeah. Photos, photos and books and paper stuff is easier. The objects are a little bit harder, but just because of space concerns. But yeah.
Okay, well, I'll just contact you on the different objects that I have to see if you would want to.
Yeah, so I personally, I'm in charge of photos, but I can certainly connect you with other colleagues of mine, depending on what specifically you're looking at. So objects would be the museum department, and then paper would be my other colleague in the archives department. But I handle photos. So if you have photos or slides, that's my area of expertise. So
Okay.
well, thank you so much for we were finally able to connect after a couple misconnections there. So I appreciate you taking the time to come here from Dauphin County and speak with me. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you.